Welcome to the Sea of Hope podcast, where we dive into the importance of mental health and how it intersects with faith. At Sea of Hope, we believe that everyone deserves access to hope, healing, and support, especially those who are struggling with mental health challenges. This community is committed to providing Christian-based conversations that prioritize mental and emotional well-being. We believe that faith can be a powerful tool in the journey toward healing and hope, and we are dedicated to creating a safe and supportive community where individuals can find the guidance and encouragement they need. Join us as we explore the latest research, personal stories, and expert insights on mental health and faith. Our goal is to inspire and empower our listeners to take steps toward a healthier, more hopeful future. Welcome to the Sea of Hope podcast.
I feel like a lot of the stigma is because of the lack of knowledge, just that we don't know. We've not been educated, and that's one of the things that we should be focusing on is educating ourselves as well as the others around us when we can. And that goes back to making sure those resources are available, that the knowledge is available, right? And that we're actually having these conversations, which is one of the reasons why I'm so glad that you guys are doing this and that you invited me on to speak about it as well.
Got another question for you off of that. Because you mentioned that a lot of people don't know because they've not been educated, and you've mentioned resources. What are some of the resources that you would say are out there for them to be able to take advantage of?
It's so vast, Dwight. And I don't know where the breakdown comes as far as the resources being available, because they are out there, but there could be more, but I don't even think we're fully taking advantage of the ones that are already out there, right? So I don't know if the breakdown is that they're not being promoted in certain areas or to certain people, or the fact that certain people just feel like it's not necessary. And we started this conversation off by talking about some people feeling like they can just pray it away, right? And of course, God can do it, but we also know faith without work is dead, right? But as far as the resources that are available, community health counseling, I know we have Wings, right? Help me name some of the other ones, Kelsey. Life Care.
Yeah, we do. We have, there is Life Care. There's Psychology and Associates. There's the Mississippi Behavioral Health Clinic in Meridian. You know, when you live in areas like we do, especially in rural areas, I think that there's not as many resources. And here's another thing with those resources. While they're great, a lot of times, especially African American community here, we don't want to go to these places because guess what? Auntie works there. Yeah. Miss Joseline from church is the secretary at the front desk or something, and we don't want nobody in our business.
Yes.
So
Yes.
And also some people don't know though that we are bound professionally and lawfully to confidentiality, right? Yes. So that's a safe space, and anybody who operates outside of that within their profession is out of line completely. But people don't know that, right?
That is true. Or sometimes they know, but they don't know what their rights are in order to do something about it, And also, and we don't talk about it, but how many people in the African American community actually have some form of health insurance? Yeah. I was reading this morning before this that the National Alliance of Mental Illness, they had posted that 10.4% of Black adults living in the U.S. had no form of health insurance. None. So if you don't have the funds financially to even receive these services,
that's right.
How do you get them?
So much more.
Yeah, how do you get them?
Right.
And then the people who are supposed to be there in the community to provide these services for free, um, they sometimes they don't really do that. They're still looking for some type of money for the service.
Mm-hmm.
Yes. So Kelsey,
And that's why I do love when we can. I'm
really quick,
sorry.
I do want to say when you use the word free, Kelsey, you put up air quotes, right? The audience, they can hear you, but they can't see you.
Right.
So when you put up free, you put up air quotes, and we all saw that and we all caught it, but I want the audience to catch it too. Go ahead, Melinda, go ahead.
I don't even know. I lost my train of thought. I think I wanted to hit on though that the fact that there are a lot of virtual services offered now that were
Mm-hmm.
not offered in the past. Thankfully,
Yeah.
COVID has brought that on the scene, but we can go back to the free in air quotes, right? It just depends on if you have the resources to even tap into, well, the financial resources to even tap into some of the mental health resources that are available.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think a lot more people,
Um,
even in our profession, though, to offer, more educational opportunities for the community. Like, we recently done a women's empowerment session. When I tell you it was beautiful, and just to see people be vulnerable and take a chance and actually, learn something in regards to mental health and actually embrace it. And guess what? When they saw it and they felt it, they were eager to have more of that. But when you don't know, you're afraid of it. And it depends on too how we're presenting this
yes.
to our
Yeah.
communities as well. It is so important. Um,
That's right.
so
And I want
but
to applaud you though for that because you provided that event for free, right? And so sometimes it does take people being selfless and trying to succeed in their mission, and what they're trying to do. So I have in the past worked with programs that were grant funded, right? That would put those resources in low income communities. And I was able to see a lot of stories that were just transformative. But the thing about stuff like that is it doesn't last forever, right?
Mm-hmm.
So how do we keep it going?
good question.
That's a very good
So
question.
for me, we're touching on something, but we haven't quite pricked it yet. So I'm gonna prick it. Loneliness, right? Loneliness. Here in the United States, our culture is when I'm 18 or maybe even younger, I'm gonna move out, go to college, be on my own. When I'm out of college, I'm gonna get my own apartment. I'm gonna move away from my family. When I have my own family, I'm not even gonna live near my family anymore. So there's this cycle of isolation and separation that has began to develop within the United States as a whole. And I'm bringing this up because earlier, Kelsey and Melinda, both of you brought up not wanting people in your business. I think in the African American community and just in general, as Americans, we can be very private. We can be very private. And I look at other cultures and I look at them and I'm in awe of how they can keep their extended families in one house. If you look at statistics and research and articles, families and individuals who have a extended community, right? A extended family with them, all the way out to their last days, their overall health is better on a general note, right? Assuming that the family is overall loving and caring and values the wisdom of the elderly. But here in the United States, we have developed a culture of when our parents get a certain age, we put them in a nursing home or we have somebody else take care of them, right? That cuts off the longevity of somebody's life. And now we're getting into the area of dementia and Alzheimer's. Now, I know that dementia and Alzheimer's, it is not even present until later in life if we have a community around us, right? If we have somebody who values who we are, right? If we have somebody in our immediate family who says, I love you, I'm going to take care of you, I'm going to bathe you, I'm going to feed you, I'm going to take you to the doctor's office, it helps. And we know, just looking at Maslow's hierarchy of needs, we need social community around us. Like, it's a human need to have community around us. And for me, something that I've seen is not having that here in the United States as our culture, not having that be an intricate part of our culture, it has definitely impacted all of the things that we're talking about here today. Melinda, yes, so community, just the need that people in the United States have to be socially connected with individuals. How would you say that that impacts the longevity of somebody's life, specifically with Alzheimer's, dementia, and just later on in our years? What are your thoughts on that, Melinda?
When we had this women's empowerment session recently, one of the things that came up was loneliness, and how sometimes when we're going through things, we do choose to alienate ourselves. And the only way I know to come at that is with a spiritual perspective. I always feel like that's an attack of the enemy, right? That's what he wants us to do when we are going through something, to get to ourselves, right? But we do know as professionals that that's not the healthiest way to do it. We need each other, right? Like the song, I need you, you need me. We're all a part of God's family, right? We need each other to survive. So, tapping into the part of the question about Alzheimer's, it's actually a very touchy subject for me. Growing up, my grandmother had Alzheimer's, and we were the perfect example of what you were speaking about, as far as a multi-generational family living together, right? Grandmother's home. My mother lived there. I lived there. My brother lived there. I had an uncle who lived there, right? And over the course of 7 years, I watched my grandmother slowly die of Alzheimer's. She had her family around her, but still, it was because of that thought that we had to be there. We gave her the care that we could at home, but I feel like ultimately she may have gotten better care somewhere else. And also during those years, I watched my mom take on too much that ultimately affected her health. So I think it's never a catch-all situation, right? And I can see how that could be very beneficial sometimes to some people. And let me also add that that was several years ago, and medication has advanced so much that, you can kind of stop the disease in its tracks almost when you catch it. But it's very situational. And I do feel like, though, when it works for your family situation, that it could be extremely beneficial. But you also you have to weigh the benefits, the hurt versus the harm, right? So that's just my opinion on the situation.
I think you did. She explained it well. She was the right person for that question. For sure, I can only speak on the loneliness part. And like she said, it was something that came up even during our women's empowerment session. Like Melinda was saying, we all need each other. And I think that sometimes we can get in our head that, well, I don't need nobody. But you do. You really do. As individuals, we need social interaction. We need other people. And the thing is, and my mom something she always told me too, you're always going to need somebody. Okay. It doesn't matter how high up you get. you're going to need somebody, because somebody is always going to have something that can help you, whether you think so or not. And if you are not learning something new every day, then what are you doing? Because that means you're stagnant. And change must happen in order for you to grow. Change is uncomfortable, though. And that's why a lot of people they shy away from change. I definitely feel that loneliness increased, and this is a personal opinion, increased during 2020 because we were shut up inside our homes, away from each other. People had to stop going to work. And you can drastically see the impact that made on our country. In every aspect. People don't even want to go to work now. They don't want to work. They want to stay home. And the thing is with that, people, we've seen an increase in depression. We've seen an increase in anxiety. We've just seen an increase in mental health altogether. And if anybody had anything going on prior to 2020, it just blew up. Yes, it did. It really did. And isolation did that. It had the power to change this entire country. And I think not a lot of people are talking about it, but they need to be, because it definitely impacted us. It changed how we view each other, how we treat each other. I mean, it's ridiculous. I think people had a little bit more passion, even though the world is dark. I think people had a lot more compassion for one another even prior to 2020 than they do now. It changed a huge dynamic. And in the Black communities, I would say it definitely changed us too, because I've seen families over COVID split up because your viewpoints are different. What?
Yeah. That right there.
For sure.
That right there.
Yeah, I mean, what are we doing? And I, personally, for me, I don't want anybody asking me my my medical information. If you weren't asking it prior to 2020, I'm sorry, you were not asking for my my shot record prior to 2020. I don't think you need to ask me what's on it now.
Hey, it's a little too private, just a little too private.
It's private, but when you try to set that boundary, and I think some people did, in certain families try to insert those boundaries during that time, and I feel like it cut a lot of families. And when you were talking about the family system and being together, I feel like, and this is just my personal opinion, and then, far as my research and studies that, over the years, but which I'm pretty sure it has changed. The dynamic has changed, but most African American families, and correct me if I'm wrong, Melinda, are collectivist families. Like, we are in that circle where we take care of our own at home. A majority of us do. For the most part. There are some that do not, and I'm not putting everybody in the same pot, but I'm just saying for the most part, a majority of African American families do typically.
I will say this though, that may be a Southern thing, and that's the only thing I have to compare it to.
Yeah. I agree with that. I definitely agree with that. I can definitely say that. But far as like in the Caucasian households, most of the time it's more individualistic. I mean, we in the Black community, you have family reunions and things of that nature. You really don't see that as much with other cultures. And they're taught to be more independent and to fly. But in our communities, especially, like Melinda said, I'm gonna say in the South, you do everything together. And then the thing is, guess what happens though, when that burden of your family has put on you, it causes other mental health issues, because now.
And that's where I would have went with that. Yep. I was right there with you.
That's where I'm going, because you're expected to take on everything for the whole world, for the whole family, and that's what you're expected to do.
Kelsey, I have a question. Oh, actually, Melinda, I think you were about to say it, but Kelsey, are you alluding to the African American family in the South on a general note, we are collective. But when there becomes an issue, whether it's financial health with a certain individual in the family, one specific person, right, or one subfamily is given the task to now take care of that person or that individual, whether it's financially or physically. Is that what both of y'all are saying?
Yes.
Yes, that's absolutely what I witnessed with my mom and my grandmother. Is what I was just speaking about. She was tasked that responsibility, and because of the cultural norm, or things that we had set in place in our, I'm not even gonna say in our culture, but in our family, she was always told that that's what you do. And even though at certain times I felt like it was too much for her to carry, right? And so that contributes also to alienating ourselves, right? Because sometimes certain family members they feel like everything is a need, right? And they come to you with it. But sometimes it's just a want. Then you got those family members that feel obligated, but can no longer provide those things. So what do? I separate.
I feel like a lot of what y'all have talked about, that a lot of people don't realize the mental health aspect that kind of goes into it. Y'all kind of hinted on it, but I just want to make sure the audience kind of catches that when you're putting in place of caring for a sick family member, whether it's physical or mental health, I think a lot of people don't realize the anxiety that is built up behind that, because you're in a constant state of worry of, if I'm not there enough, what's going to happen? Or if they end up dying or getting worse, some people can internalize that as, I didn't do enough. And even more so, as y'all were speaking about, there is just about in every family, there's that one person that everybody's going to go to. And that can become a serious mental health issue, because then you feel obligated to meet everybody's expectation. And if you don't, that can cause a spiral of depression.
Thank you for joining us on today's episode of the Sea of Hope podcast. If you enjoyed today's episode, please leave us a review and subscribe to our podcast on your favorite platform. At Sea of Hope, we believe that mental health is an essential part of our overall wellness, and we are committed to providing resources and support to those who are struggling. Through our faith-based approach, we seek to offer hope, healing, and restoration through relevant conversations. We want to remind you that you are not alone and that there is always hope for a brighter tomorrow. If you or someone you know is struggling with mental health issues, we encourage you to reach out to a certified mental health professional. Thank you for tuning in to the Sea of Hope podcast. We invite you to join us next time as we continue our journey of bringing hope to the mental health community. Until then, we pray that the grace of the Lord Jesus Christ and the love of God and the fellowship of the Holy Spirit be with you all.